So the last thing that I want to do for today's material is look at some interesting information about ethanol. Ethanol is the alcohol that is present in alcoholic beverages. So it's alcohol that we can consume relatively safely. Here's the structure of ethanol, CH3CH2OH. When we consume alcohol, it is mostly absorbed from our stomach, and it goes into, or also absorbed from our small intestine, and it goes into the bloodstream. And once it gets into our blood, our blood transports the ethanol to other organs of our body, and it has a different effect on the other organs in our body depending on where it's going. So when alcohol goes into our brain, as we know, it affects things like coordination, our mood, memories. Sometimes you have a hard time remembering things that happened when you were under the influence of alcohol, and also just your general thought process. It does end up in our lungs. About 8% of alcohol that you consume is evaporated through your lungs during the exhalation process. So that's one of the reasons that you can smell it on somebody's breath. Not the only reason, but one. It does end up in the blood vessels under your skin. Very small amount ends up in the blood vessels under your skin. So if you're around somebody and you say you can smell the alcohol on their body, not talking about smelling it on their breath, but like they just smell like alcohol, that's probably what you're smelling, the alcohol reaching the surface, the underneath of the person's skin, and then coming out through the pores of their skin. It also goes to our kidneys, which causes your kidneys to work harder, which is one of the reasons why you have to pee a lot when you're drinking alcohol. There's some misconceptions about why you're peeing so much when you drink alcohol. But really, it boils down to your kidneys are working hard to try to metabolize the alcohol and get it out of your system. And then ultimate destination for alcohol would be the liver. This is where most of the alcohol goes because that's where we primarily metabolize it. Let's take a look at the metabolism of ethanol or alcohol. So the metabolism of ethanol is a two-step process. So here's the ethanol molecule. The first thing that it encounters is this substance called ADH, which stands for alcohol dehydrogenase. And that is an enzyme that converts the alcohol into a molecule called acetaldehyde. So that's step one. Alcohol turns into acetaldehyde. Acetaldehyde is the substance that gives us a hangover. So when you have a hangover, it comes from the buildup of acetaldehyde in your body. You can, so sometimes you can say you drank, but you didn't get a hangover. You can avoid hangovers if you don't drink too much, or if you pace yourself as you're drinking so that you never get to a point where you're accumulating large quantities of acetaldehyde in your body, because it's this large accumulation of acetaldehyde that gives us the hangover. Now, the hangover itself is not only due to accumulation of acetaldehyde. You can also have symptoms of hangover just from general dehydration. Remember, you're peeing a lot, so your body's going to get dehydrated. Alcohol can cause irritation to your stomach, depending on how much alcohol you're drinking. So that's also contributing to hangover symptoms. And then also, too, you can get an immune response if you're drinking alcohol, depending on how much you're drinking, and also just kind of depending on your body, your biochemistry. Your body doesn't want alcohol in it. It does recognize it as something that doesn't really belong there. So it can trigger an immune response, which can lead to symptoms of hangover. So once your body has done this first step of converting the ethanol into acetaldehyde, the acetaldehyde reaches a second enzyme. This enzyme is called ALDH, aldehyde dehydrogenase. And this ALDH takes it through the last step, which is converting it into acetate. The acetate is the final product of metabolism, so then the whole process is over, and then your body's done with it. There is a drug, an interesting drug called Antabuse. So this is a pharmaceutical drug, prescription medication that is used to treat severe alcoholism. Antabuse works by shutting off I don't know if I can change colors here. Yeah. Shutting off, inhibiting this whole like second step of the metabolism process. So when you're on Antabuse, all of this doesn't happen at all. And the drug works by just shutting off this second step. So that means that when you take Antabuse and you drink alcohol, the ethanol that you consume is converted to acetaldehyde. And remember, acetaldehyde is what causes your hangover. So you get this immediate buildup of acetaldehyde, and the acetaldehyde has nowhere to go in your body. It can't be broken down. It can't be further metabolized. So you just get this immediate hangover, and it's a severe hangover because 100% of the alcohol that you drink is now all just giving you straight up hangover. The idea behind Antabuse is that a person will take the Antabuse drug, they will still continue to drink alcohol anyways because they do have an addiction problem. They will just begin to associate drinking with this very severe hangover, unpleasant situation, and they will eventually form a negative connection to alcohol, and it will make them not want to drink alcohol anymore. Another interesting thing about the ADH and ALDH metabolism of alcohol is the way our body metabolizes methanol. Methanol is also an alcohol. Its structure is CH3OH, but this is not an alcohol that we want to drink. It's poisonous. Methanol is a molecule that is produced unintentionally. It's a byproduct of the fermentation process. So when people are doing distillation at home, they're making their own alcohol. This is a home still. This person is making their own moonshine at home. So what's going on in here is that they've done some, prior to this setup, they've done some kind of fermentation process, or they've rotted some fruits and got some other ingredients in there, and they've got this mixture of stuff down here in the bottom of this. This is a hot thing, kind of like a boiler, and it is boiling ethanol and methanol vapors up. So it's all in the gas phase, boiling up, and they boil up into this copper tube, which is going down into here. This is just what it looks like. It's a bucket of water, cold water, and it circulates through this bucket of cold water. That causes it to turn from gas back into a liquid, drains out into this container. This is where they're collecting their alcohol. So the home distillation process occasionally produces methanol along with ethanol. Ethanol is the desired product. Methanol is the undesired product. This distillation situation over here is our effort, the moonshiner's effort, to purify and remove methanol from the alcohol that they are making. But if they do this process incorrectly or poorly, they could end up getting some methanol down inside their collection container, which you don't want. It is very toxic. Let's take a look at what happens if somebody makes some bad moonshine and you get some methanol down here in this container and you drink it. If you drink methanol in moonshine that was made poorly, and it probably has ethanol in it as well, but if you're happening to drink methanol in your body, the methanol and ethanol use the exact same enzymes for metabolism. So in starting with methanol, the first step of the metabolism of methanol uses ADH, alcohol dehydrogenase, just the same as ethanol. Notice though, so here's where things go wrong. The first step of the metabolism of methanol produces formaldehyde. You may not be familiar with formaldehyde, but if you look it up on the internet, you'll see pretty quickly that this is not something that you want to have inside of your body. It is extremely toxic, like very, very hazardous. And consuming formaldehyde causes blindness, coma, and death. So it's extremely poisonous. And unfortunately, there are people who die from drinking moonshine that has been incorrectly or improperly purified and contains large quantities of methanol. It is, if you do happen to drink some moonshine and suspect that you may have accidentally, unintentionally consumed some methanol, and you're being poisoned by it, if you seek out help right away, like immediately, you can recover. There are two different ways that the medical field treats methanol poisoning. One, the newer method, is with an actual drug, pharmaceutical drug, fomepizole. This particular drug is able to inhibit, it doesn't totally stop, but it inhibits the enzymes that are used in the metabolism process. And by inhibiting those enzymes, it shuts off the metabolism, which means that it's not producing, your body is not producing the formaldehyde and the acetaldehyde and the acetic acid and formic acid. So the alcohol is being left unmetabolized in your body, and your body is able to just secrete it out. You just gotta wait it out. Or it is producing the formaldehyde in really small quantities. And in those small quantities, our body is able to deal with it without it being like a toxic, poisonous situation. So that's one option for dealing with alcohol, methanol poisoning. The other option that we have, and this is a little bit more of like a cowboy method, is ethanol. Ethanol is actually a really effective treatment for methanol poisoning. So let me erase all this stuff right here. Ethanol, as in the alcohol that you drink to get drunk with the purpose of getting drunk, our bodies very much prefer to metabolize ethanol over methanol. So say you get a little bit of methanol in your body, you've drank some methanol, and the methanol is being metabolized into formaldehyde, and you don't like that idea. You don't want that to happen. What you can do is load up on ethanol, like just drink a crap ton of alcohol, good stuff, top shelf. Drink a ton of alcohol because the alcohol dehydrogenase enzyme prefers to interact with ethanol. So if there's a lot of ethanol present in your body, alcohol dehydrogenase is going to go after that ethanol, and it's going to ignore the methanol, which means it's going to shut off or slow down the metabolism of methanol. Methanol is going to sit largely unmetabolized and just be secreted from your body before it has a chance to turn into formaldehyde. The ethanol is going to move down the normal path. You are probably going to get a whopper of a hangover, but it is better than the side effects of consuming large quantities of methanol. I am not a healthcare provider. I do not encourage you to drink a bunch of vodka if you think you have gotten methanol poisoning. You should definitely seek out somebody with a medical degree to advise you on how to deal with that.